Kia ora, and welcome to Friday's Economy Watch, where we follow the economic events and trends that affect Aotearoa. I'm David Chaston, and this is the international edition from interest.co.nz. And today we lead with news the US and Iran have apparently agreed a 60-day truce pending Trump's sign-off. All the while, both sides traded attacks in the region. The small number of ships transiting the Strait of Hormuz has virtually dried up, though. Meanwhile, US jobless claims slipped last week to 185,600, and about what seasonal factors would have indicated. There are now 1.68 million people on these benefits, less than both 1 and 2 years ago. And there was a sharp drop in new home sales in the US reported for April. They were down 11.3% from a year ago. Rising mortgage rates is weighing heavily on this sector. But they reported a sharp increase in durable goods orders in April, up 19% from a year ago and notably up from March. This is where we see the full effect of stockpiling as buyers try to get ahead of rising inflation. One reason was a 41% jump in capital goods on the same basis, but excluding defence and aircraft orders, the increase was modest. And the second estimate of US GDP growth for the first quarter of 2026 is out, and it was revised lower, mainly on lower consumer spending and investment levels than in the initial estimate. They now say the US economy expanded 1.6% in the period. They also released the April data for US personal income and personal spending. This showed that personal disposable income fell from March and was up only 2.5% from a year ago, while personal consumption expenditures rose and is up 5.9% from a year ago. In fact, their April PCE inflation measure rose to 3.8%, its highest since May 2023 and the end of the pandemic effect, and prior to that, the highest since this data was collated in 2017. Undoubtedly, this has the Fed's attention, especially the accelerating nature of it. US crude oil and petrol stocks fell again last week, but only by about the levels expected, and that extends the fall to 5 consecutive weeks, all substantial, and coming after the 3 prior weeks of modest or no change outcomes. Retail pump prices for petrol are still 48% higher than at the start of the Iran-US conflict and the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. And there was a US Treasury 7-year note auction overnight, and the yield increase was not as fierce as yesterday's event. This one delivered a median yield of 4.24%, up from 4.12% at the prior equivalent event a month ago. In Canada, their central bank has released and updated their financial stability report, which found that Canada's financial system has functioned well through a challenging year. Households and businesses remain in a stable financial condition, and banks have strengthened their capacity to absorb shocks, they said. Meanwhile, they reported that average weekly earnings rose 3.5% in March from a year ago in Canada, its fastest pace of increase. They have CPI inflation at 2.8% at the same time. So Canadian employers are generally staying ahead of the cost pressures. And the Korean central bank kept its official rate unchanged yesterday at 2.5% as expected. Updated Australian household spending data for April shows it fell 1.1% month on month on a current price and seasonally adjusted basis to be 4.9% higher than in April 2025. In the same period, CPI inflation rose 4.2%. The weak outcome is being attributed to the sharp hike in fuel costs and compensating pullbacks elsewhere. It is their first fall in household spending in 4 months. And staying in Australia, they said private new capital expenditure rose 6.5% in the March quarter to be 14.6% higher than in March 2025. This strong growth is largely on the back of significant investment in data centres, up 96% and a new record high, of course. Investment in mining was flat. And the Middle East war led to a 3.4% fall in air passenger demand in April, but Asia-Pacific international demand rose 3% from a year ago. For air cargo, demand was up 4% despite the turmoil, up 11.3% in the Asia-Pacific region. Global container freight rates rose 3.2% last week from the prior week to be 12% higher than year-ago levels. This is largely driven by rates from China to the EU. Trans-Pacific rates from China to the US West Coast actually fell last week, as did trade volumes. Meanwhile, bulk cargo rates rose 4.4% last week to be a massive 140% higher than a year ago. The US Treasury 10-year yield is now just on 4.45%, down 3 basis points from yesterday. And the price of gold will start today up $57 at $4,506 an ounce. Silver's back up $1.50 at $76 an ounce. And oil prices have fallen 50 cents to be just on $89 a barrel in the US, while the international Brent price is now at $93.50 a barrel, down $1.50. And the Kiwi dollar is up 40 basis points from yesterday at this time at 59.3 US cents. Against the Aussie, we're up 20 basis points at 82.8 Australian cents. Against the euro, we're also up 20 basis points at 50.9 euro cents. That all means our trade-weighted index starts today at just under 62.8, which is up 40 basis points from yesterday. And the Bitcoin price starts today at $73,455 and down 1.8% from yesterday. Volatility of the past 24 hours has been moderate at just under plus or minus 2%. You can get more news affecting the economy in New Zealand from interest.co.nz. Kia ora, I'm David Chaston, and because Monday is a New Zealand holiday, we'll do this again on Tuesday.